Good afternoon and welcome to Indy Media On Air here on KPFK. I am Bronwyn Malden with the Los Angeles Independent Media Center and Radio IMCLA, and that was, of course, Steve Earle with Jerusalem. I'm in the KPFK studios today with filmmaker Lisa Scott. She has just completed a wonderful documentary about California's three strikes law that is currently being screened all across California. The film is called Under Three Strikes. Welcome, Lisa, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Great. We're going to be joined later by Sue Reams, one of the leaders of the organization Families to Amend California's Three Strikes Law, which is probably better known to KPFK listeners by their acronym, FACTS. Sue is the mother of a three-striker who's currently serving 25 to life for watching a friend sell drugs to an undercover cop, and we're going to hear more about his story later. And we're also going to take your calls at the end of the show. You said you've been involved with the issue for quite a while. How did you get involved in it? How did you find out about what's going on?
Yeah, well, it's kind of a sad story, actually, although I think one worth telling. My daughter met a young man when she was in high school. They were both seniors together, and she had a very, very good relationship with him. Wonderful young man. And I got to know him, and he was just really likable and really smart, but he had learning disabilities, and he had a lot of trouble in school. And often what happens in those cases is that they look for places to be accepted, and he got involved with some other young men, and as young men often do, they found themselves in some trouble. And it was something about a fight and a stolen watch. Okay, that's all I knew. And I'll never forget, she comes into me and goes, "Mom, you're not going to believe this. If my friend," now realize at this point he's 19 and a half years old. And she comes in and goes, "Mom, if my friend does one more thing under California's three strikes law, he goes to prison for the rest of his life." And I, of course, wanted to calm her down and realize that, kids hear all kinds of things, and I couldn't believe it. I didn't believe it. And I told her, "Honey, calm down. Mom's going to find out the truth about this, set the record straight." Well, I went online and I did a little research the next day, and my jaw just dropped. I remember, I'll never forget the feeling when I learned that this was actually being implemented in the state in which I lived. So, I called FACTS, and I knew that it was something that I wanted to try to document and learn more about. So I called FACTS, Families to Amend California's Three Strikes, and started going to their meetings and, just followed the story.
Mm-hmm. So in the course of following the story, obviously you got to a point where you were decided to put this all together into a film. And I'm curious about, as you were going through the process of making the film, and especially one of the things you did I think is really interesting is you actually went up to one of the state prisons and talked to some of the inmates there who were under who were serving 25 years, 50 to life, whatever. I'm curious, what do you think what did you learn in that process that you don't think most Californians know about the Three Strikes Law?
Well, I've learned a lot. And meeting with the prisoners was just a really, it was hard. It was a hard experience. I took a friend. We went in together with a couple of cameras and we interviewed. And you're not allowed to ask for specific interviews of specific inmates in the state. That's a law. And so they just, provided me with 6 inmates, and we talked. And they're just, and I spoke with inmates on the phone as well, actually. I had inmates calling me and doing phone interviews, which were also really hard, really difficult to do, because it's real gut-wrenching when you hear somebody and they're so willing to describe what they're going through, and it's very painful, and, yet they're willing to do it, and you have a tough time hanging up the phone or leaving. I mean, the ride home was quite tough. But the things that I learned while I was in doing, my research and doing my interviews was that Well, our law is our three strikes law is different from any other state in the union. Okay, it's different. No other state in the nation has a three strikes law where the third strike can be for any crime. It has to be violent or serious. Also, no other state has a three strikes law that has a two-strike component. And this
A
a
two-strike
true
component.
two-strike component.
I don't know anything
Absolutely.
about that.
And this is something I'd just like to take a minute to explain because, as I said, it was kind of painful for me that I couldn't really deal with this in the documentary. And I want to start by saying that this is not a simple law. You will hear the proponents of three strikes. You heard it when they passed the law in 1994, and you hear them say it all the time that it's a very simple law. It's simple so that the criminal can understand. You do something your third time and you're out for life. Mm-hmm. It's not simple. It's complicated, and these people are getting swept up, caught up in it, and citizens don't understand what's going on. There's about 25 other states that have a three strikes law, plus the federal government. So, we can look at those laws, and all of them have hundreds of people, just simply hundreds. I mean, I think the federal law has incarcerated 300 people with a third strike since 1994, 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. We have in California 42,000 locked up under the three strikes law. Okay,
wow.
Right. As opposed, so what I'm saying is, all other states, we have more actually incarcerated under our three strikes law than all the other 25 states in the federal government put together.
Really?
42,000.
Wow.
Now, how do you net that many people when obviously when it's must be for violent and serious crimes, as the other states, they don't. They catch hundreds of people, okay, not thousands. Well, because we have this second strike component, and actually our three strikes law is a one-strike law. You have one strike. If you commit one violent or serious strike, and there's a list, there are a list of what's considered violent and serious, and if you commit one of those at any time, and then you commit any other felony. Again, this is the second strike component, which is like the third strike. It can be any felony. Your prison time is automatically doubled. And in effect, it's tripled because the sentencing structure changes and you must do 80% of that sentence. Unlike if it's not a strike, you could be eligible for release at 50%. If you do your program and you take advantage of the rehabilitation, such as it is. So, but with the second strike, it is in effect tripling the sentence for someone. So now you have someone that has one strike, and they're now doing a sentence of 5, 7, 10, 15 years for something that without this second strike component, they would have done 2, 3, 5. Okay? So what you're doing is you're taking these folks on their second strike and you're incarcerating them for this really lengthy period. Now, what is the chance of those people coming out and living a productive life? Virtually none. So what you have when these people are being released after 5, 6, 7, 10-year sentences is someone who's dysfunctional in society. Now they're on parole.
And who's going to hire them at this point?
Nobody's going to hire them. Now they're on parole, which leaves them open to many, many parole violation, okay? So now they have all these violations that they can commit, and we wonder why our recidivist rate is so high in this state. It's a setup.
I'm curious, how much of of what you spoke when you talked to them, how much of that material were you able to use in the film?
Yeah, well, not as much as I would have liked to, actually. Again, we cut it in about 6 weeks, and that was just a marathon in itself. And so, we used what we could we wanted to give a realism to it. We wanted people to see these faces and hear these voices. And it's really sad because there is a real desperation to their stories and their voices. They're trying really hard to tell us. And I certainly agree that to be in prison for life for, be aiding and abetting a drug sale is just not something that I believe that my state should be doing.
Okay. We actually have a couple of audio clips. The first person we're going to hear is William Gravison, and the second will be Tomas Flores. And we'll just listen to what they've got to say. Yeah. And this is from Sentinel State Prison, is that correct?
Sentinel State Prison.
Okay. Let's just take a listen.
My name is William Gravison. I'm in Sentinel State Prison. My third strike is a drug case. I was selling dope to supply my own habit. And I wasn't no big-time dope dealer. And I would just make 20, 40 bucks here or there. And I just got caught up in it. Am I guilty? Yeah, I am guilty. Do I believe I should be put away for the rest of my life and most likely die in prison, because I am 47 years old now, just started this term, 2 years into it. Do I believe I should die in here for selling dope? No, I do not. I still have a drug problem. I have never done a drug program in my life. They have never even offered me one. Every time I got caught for dope, I went to prison. The system has never tried to help me, never. Is that their fault? No, it's mine. It is my fault. You know, could I have done it on my own? Possibly, but I didn't. If this law is not amended, before long, there's going to be so many people in prison, you ain't going to be able to afford to pay for it. Is it crowded in here? Sure, it's crowded. They're putting bunks in our day room floor. Yeah. They haven't brought in people yet, but they've got the beds in there. There's a lot of prisons that are designed for single cells. They're all doubled up. A level 3 prison is designed for, you get yard morning and afternoon. We get yard half that time, either morning or afternoon. There's just going to be too many people on the yard to do it both. You know, which I understand. You know, I mean, they have a job to do to control us. You know, and you know, that's part of prison life. I believe there are good people and bad people in here, both. You know, there's a lot of people in here who don't deserve to be locked up for the rest of their life. A lot. You know, there are people in here that are innocent. You know, it happens. It does happen.
My name is Tomas Flores. I'm here in Centinela State Prison. I'm doing 25 to life for second-degree burglary. It was a garage, taking property out of the garage, that's all. That I didn't even know that the law was in process, you know. And I took the stand thinking this time I'm gonna see some justice, but I got convicted for 25 to life. There was no justice. Then after I got sentenced, I started looking about the three-strike law. And what I read on the papers, in the newspapers, that it was basing for the cases, felony cases, serious cases, like murderers, kidnappers, rapers, and all those people. And I don't got nothing of that in my past, you know. And I hope that the people get a good understanding of this law and make a change.
It's interesting. It seems like a lot of folks who are, and a lot of Californians don't know a lot about the law. And it sounds like even a lot of the folks who are actually in prison with a 25-year to life, one of these 3 strikes cases, don't know a lot about the law themselves.
You know, of the ones that I spoke with, it was a handful. I mean, that said, yeah, I was aware. Even those who said they were aware of the law weren't entirely aware what kind of crimes were involved. Most of them, however, had no idea that the law even existed, or again, if they did, they thought it was for murderers, rapists. You know, that was something that was really striking to me.
I just want to remind listeners we are listening to KPFK. This is Indy Media On Air. We're on 90.7 FM Los Angeles, 98.7 FM Santa Barbara, and we've got in the studio with us is filmmaker Lisa Scott talking about her new documentary that's just out called Under 3 Strikes. We also have with us on the telephone Sue Reams. Sue, are you there?
I am here.
Hi, thanks a lot for being with us. Welcome to Indy Media On Air.
Thank you very much for inviting me. An important issue to me.
It certainly is. Why don't you just talk to us a little bit? I know you have been working a lot. You're a mom. You're an activist with Families to Amend California's 3 Strikes Law, and you have a very personal reason for being involved in it. Could you talk to us a little bit about that?
Well, I guess I started off being a mom with a son who had a drug problem, and I was basically a Little League mom to begin with, and didn't really become an activist until my son was sentenced to 25 to life for watching a drug sale. And I really knew nothing about 3 strikes except the fact that I had voted for it. And so now I feel like I was lied to, fooled, and I watch every piece of legislation that goes through to make sure that I don't make that kind of a mistake again.
Now, you say your son was arrested. He was sentenced for watching a drug sale and got 25 to life for that.
Correct. They considered him the lookout, aiding and abetting the sale of a $20 rock of cocaine.
And the person who actually sold the drugs, what kind of a sentence did he get?
He got a sentence of 4 years and did 2.
Wow.
But a jury in California, I didn't even know this, that the jury in California isn't even told that it's a 3-strike case, that their guilt or innocence after a trial is going to net, my son, the aiding and abetter, the lookout that's standing 30 feet from this drug sale, that he was going to get a 25-year to life sentence. Mm-hmm. So it was quite a shock. Mm-hmm. Quite a shock.
Well, I guess the good news this year is that that there's an effort afoot to do something to change the 3 strikes law, and Proposition 66 will be before the voters in November. Can you talk, Sue, a little bit about Proposition 66 and what it'll do for us?
Well, I think the main thing it does,
mm-hmm.
big thing it does, is it restores what I think and what most people think was the voters' original intent. Life mm-hmm. sentences for repeat violent felons. That's what I heard when I voted for it to begin with. Violent crime. This is going to restore, what I thought I was voting for. So petty theft, non-serious, non-violent crime is, these people are maybe going to get some justice here. And the other mm-hmm. thing it does is it, I think it allows the people of California who truly do, I think, feel that they want to be fair with the court. They believe that the court should be fair. Why does, a murderer or a rapist can get out of prison, and yet they who have done a petty theft are getting a life sentence in prison? So I think it restores common sense sentencing, what the people really want, making the punishment fit the crime.
So I think there's in the media there's a lot of misconceptions. The folks who are opposed to Prop 66 have been saying all sorts of things about what's going to happen, that the day after it passes, the prison doors are all going to open wide and everybody's going to come flooding out into the streets. I'm guessing, Sue, that that's not really correct.
That is absolutely false.
Mm-hmm.
According to the judge, it was patently false. And that 26,000 includes second strikers. Mm-hmm. This initiative applies to the third strike, those who have gotten a life sentence. So it will apply to about 4,000 people who have a life sentence. And it will apply to them, but they will be required to go before, resentencing, retried for their crime. And so mm-hmm. Hopefully, there's no one with a violent crime who are going to just be walking out of the prisons. That's not going to happen. And that's what it seems that our opponents want to say. But that's not true. It's going to be resentencing for everyone.
So those folks will have to appear before a judge. A judge will have to consider everything, and
that's right.
and there'll be a new sentence applied based on something other than 3 strikes.
Well, based on their record mm-hmm. and that third strike, whether it was a violent or nonviolent crime, and even their prior history will be considered. So the judge, that they appear before, will see their entire case history. So judges really will be ruling on each person. They won't be. Mm-hmm. It won't be a one-size-fits-all, mm-hmm. and people will not just be walking out in droves.
All right, great. We are going to go to a break right now, and we'll be back in just a moment with filmmaker Lisa Scott and activist Sue Reams.
You are listening to Indy Media on the Air on your station for independent news and information, KPFK Los Angeles, Pacifica Radio for the world. Stay tuned for more progressive news and information with Damon Azali on Voices from the Frontline edition of the 4 o'clock report. That's coming up at 4 o'clock today.
All right, we are back with Indy Media On Air. I'm Bronwyn Malden, and I am in the studio here with Lisa Scott, a filmmaker who's just finished a wonderful documentary called Under Three Strikes. And we're going to talk in a little bit about where you can see the film here in the L.A. area. I also have on the phone with me Sue Reams, who's with Families to Amend California's Three Strikes Law. She appears in the film, tells a wonderful story about what's happening to her and the work she's doing to amend the Three Strikes Law. And, of course, Proposition 66 will be appearing before voters on the ballot in November. So we have an opportunity to vote and to, as the folks from Facts, as Sue was saying, to restore the voters' original intent to the law. So I wanted to ask you about just kind of what are the kind of things that you're doing on a day-to-day basis for getting Proposition 66 passed and to change the Three Strikes Law?
Well, it's been a history. It's been a long history, about 8 years of it. But Prop 66 has certainly energized us to go out, and I think we've done our homework. I think those people with facts have, and in the campaign certainly now, have done their work at educating the people about this law. There's obviously people to reach, but I'm speaking at a college tomorrow. We're speaking at colleges and churches, and we have Lisa's film, which is absolutely wonderful and has helped so much, and we have a short film for people who are doing house parties to teach and to make people really understand, hopefully, what the three-strike law has been and what it should have been, or what did they think it was, and what it will become, something that's fair. And I've certainly, like I said, worked with the legislative end of this and been through 9 pieces of legislation.
Wow.
And the sad part about that is because this law was voted on, and so we need 2/3 of the Congress to, the legislators to vote in favor of amending this law. And we have never been successful. The people that come out against it immediately, of course, are the Attorney General's Association and the Prison Guards Union. So even though I've heard comment that they think the law probably does need some fine-tuning now, it needs fine-tuning. It definitely needs fine-tuning, but we can't get it done in the legislature. So there is no choice but to put it to the people. Let the people decide if this isn't a law if this is the way that they wanted this law to go. So I think it's very hopeful. Our poll numbers have been wonderful. People are really beginning to understand, and I think that's the thing, is I'm amazed at how people truly do believe in the fairness of this. And that's the exciting part.
Yeah, and I just want to add to what Sue just said, because in the documentary I do have a segment called Sacramento and the CCPOA. And in that segment, I show the connection, and that the Prison Guards Union, why they are invested in keeping this law on the books and what they do to make sure that happens. I mean, they give millions and millions of dollars in campaign contributions. And I want to mention also something about the District Attorneys Association, which I find very interesting. I had actually asked for interviews with several district attorneys. I guess this was back maybe in June, the beginning of the summer. And this handful were more than willing to speak to me, and they understood, my position and the kinds of questions I was going to be asking. After the District Attorneys Association went on the record saying we are opposed to Prop 66, those people wouldn't speak to me anymore. And I had some very interesting conversations with them on the phone as to why suddenly they'd had to take this party line. I mean, it was really despicable. I had some very interesting conversations and came away believing that, these district attorneys are I mean, at best, they believe that the law works and they're using it as a tool. And at worst, I mean, they're just following what their association is telling them to do when in their hearts they don't believe that this law is working. So that was really, I thought, shameful.
There may be KPFK listeners who are interested in getting involved in what FACTS is doing around Prop 66. Can you tell a little about how folks can get involved?
Well, we have a campaign office right here in Los Angeles.
All right.
And I'll give you the number for the campaign office.
Please do.
And that's 323-932-9521.
All right.
Of course, they can always contact our fax office in Los Angeles, and that number is 213-746-4844. We're going to be out walking precincts. Lisa's film's being shown up and down the state, several areas here in the Los Angeles area. There's also a play that's being done and being shown at various places. We have a calendar on our website that gives all the information, and on the campaign website as well. So we do have a campaign website for 66, and that is yes66.org.
Oh, great. Yes66.org.
Correct.
All right. I want to go right now, Lisa, back to your film and listen to another clip from the film. This is going to be another of the three strikers that you interviewed. Can tell me a little about this?
Yeah, Lamont is an African-American male who was sentenced to 25 years to life for, actually, I believe he's 28 years to life. You hear him explain that in the clip. And, for basically for telling an undercover officer where he can purchase drugs. I mean, he didn't sell anything. He didn't have nothing hand-to-hand, exchanged of drugs or money or anything. And then Chiaki Del Rio, he's a really sad situation, and there's so many. He's a 26-year-old man who his strikes were as a juvenile, and they were used against him as an adult, and he's now doing, I believe he's 28 years to life too. And this is what I was saying before about my daughter's friend. I mean, you're 19 years old. You're stuck with this for the rest of your life until it happens, and the odds aren't good for a lot of these guys, So anyway, we're going to hear Lamont and Chiaki.
All right, let's go ahead and play that clip.
My name is Lamont Stewart. I'm at Sidnella State Prison. I got struck out on a dope case. It's sad. It's sad. It's real sad that undercover officer, approach you and ask you to go get somebody to sell some dope, It's wrong because it's trickery. Because, California say no police officer or agency can turn anybody's mind into a criminal thing because they supposed to be upholding the law. Now, if I'm walking down the street minding my own business and here you come and ask me, do I know who somebody buys some dope? Yeah, I live in the ghetto. I know. So I tell you go down the street and get, buy some dope. Now, does that make me guilty? Does that make me guilty? No. But that person sell you some dope, then you come down the street and take me to trial for sales of cocaine. I never touched no money, no dope, but you give me 25 to life. Then add 3 more to what your enhancements and give me 28 to life. I'm pretty much on my own. I'm blessed to be able to collect, every blue moon. I get $20, you know what I'm saying, 28 to life, everybody gone. You know what I'm saying, They don't have the time. They barely making it themselves, So I leave them alone. Like I say, I'm blessed to get the couple of dollars I do in the phone calls once a month, I'm a believer in hope, and, I'm feeling good like just talking to you, I got energy, and, it's a blessing. I believe that, the hope that I have in this life, this 3-strike law changing, it's deep. And I also come to, the conclusion, whatever happens, I got to do this, no matter what, you know. I got to do the best I can.
I'm Shockey Del Rio. I'm 26 years old. I'm in for possession, and we're in Sentinel State Prison.
Thank you.
Okay.
Tell me about your third strike.
It was simple possession. You know, we had went to court, hired a lawyer, tried to get the best deal. They weren't offering a deal. I received my 2 strikes as a juvenile, so that carried over into my adult life. So we didn't get a deal. Decided on going to trial. Judge told me that he was going to give me one thing, ended up giving me something else. And here I am, 28 to life. I got a bad past. I mean, you know, I'm not a murderer or nothing like that, but I mean, you know, I did some robberies and things like that. But, you know, I mean, you're only, what, 13, 14, 15? I mean, you know right from wrong, but I mean, you still, you know, you're still not an adult yet. So that's what affected me now as an adult. And so, I mean, those were the main reasons. I didn't get the life for the crime that I'm here for now. I got it for a what if and for my past. And that's what was said to me in the courtroom.
What was said to you in the courtroom?
You know, if it was any other case, if it was for any other reason, this case would be over with. You know, you'd go home. You know, I mean, you'd get what, probation. But because of your, you know, because of your past as a juvenile, this is the reason why I'm going to give you this, 28 to life. I don't think that's what it was designed for when they first brought it out, though. I don't think it was for petty crimes, petty theft, drug addiction. I mean, I think when the people voted it in, I thought it was for violent crimes, kidnappers, murderers. I mean, that's who the law was based around, polyclass. You know, her murder and the man that killed her. It's hard, you know, it's hard to try to say that, you know, to have hope, but I guess hope is the only thing that you have if you don't have anything else. You know, I guess you got to smile. I mean, you know, you can't let the pressures of prison get to you, you know, I mean. My hope is my wife, is my family, is these people of California, these voters, or, you know, or the law and these politicians, that somebody can go out there and let these people see, you know, that the truth is going to come out. I mean, freedom is hope, I guess, and that's what I'm looking forward to.
What are you going to do when you get out?
I'm going to move to an island, build a hut, get a tractor. I mean, you know, I'm just going to try to, you know, live my life, you know. I mean, I got locked up 9 days after I was married. So basically, my honeymoon was coming to the county jail. I mean, I already had a life and a future set and the things that I wanted to do, you know, but because of the circumstance and the reason why I got locked up and, you know, the time that I got right there, you know, I was unable to fulfill that and, you know, and move on. A lot of people out there don't know, so I think they need to go out there and get familiar and read up and understand and see what kind of people they're putting away and why they're putting them away for.
And that was Shockey Del Rio, who is currently serving 28 to life in Centinela State Prison. Just a reminder, we're listening to KPFK on 90.7 FM in Los Angeles, 98.7 FM in Santa Barbara, and streaming worldwide on kpfk.org. We're going to take your calls. If you'd like to give us a call, you can reach us at 818-985-5735. That's 818-985-KPFK. Here in the studio with us is Lisa Scott, a filmmaker who just finished her film Under Three Strikes, where she interviewed many prisoners, family members, experts on the Three Strikes Law. Really great film. On the phone with us also is Sue Reams, who is an activist with families to amend California's Three Strikes Law. And before we go to the calls, Lisa, can you tell us, your film is going to be screening in a number of different places around the Los Angeles area. Can you tell us where folks can go see your film?
It is, gladly. And I just want to start by saying that screenings are added every day, so check the website. That's the easiest way to do this for all information, and that is under3strikes.org. And this Friday night, if you are looking for something to do, come to the Velocity Cafe on Lincoln Boulevard at 7 p.m. We're screening it there. October 23rd, we're very happy to be part of the Human Rights Film Festival at the Echo Park Film Center. Wednesday, October 27th, we're going to be at Tia Chuch's, which is in Sylmar. Again, you can get all the information on the website. That's at 7 p.m. And Thursday, October 28th, we're going to be screening at 7:30 7:30 at Lemley's in Old Town, Pasadena. We're going to be screening with another wonderful film, Juvies, which is about the juvenile justice system. So that's going to be a really great event, October 28th.
Great. A lot of opportunities to see the film and more screenings being scheduled. And visit the website. And if you want to find out how to get a screening in your community,
Absolutely, we would love that. We'll bring the tapes and the deck and the whole bit and screen and speakers. So call us.
Great. We've got a couple of callers, and I want to see get as many of these as we can. First up, we've got Mona, who's calling in from Santa Monica. Hi, Mona.
Hi.
How you doing?
I wanted to ask this question: if a person commits a crime and they do their time, and that's over with, is that still part of the three strikes law? Is that still could that be number one still?
Well, yeah, the first strike has to be from the violent and serious list, and there's about 15 crimes that are on that list. And so if that is the crime that they have committed and were sentenced for, yes, when they do their time and they come out, they now have one strike.
I think that's terrible if they've done their crime. I mean, if they've served their time to society, it doesn't seem like it should be fair to do it that way.
Yeah, well, a lot of people will tell you that they believe it's double jeopardy, and that has actually been tested in the courts, and it was, the courts did not agree that it was double jeopardy, meaning to serve more time for a crime that you've already served your time for.
Yeah, well, that certainly has to be changed.
Yeah. Well, thanks for your call, Mona. I want to go now to Lee, who's calling us from Los Angeles.
Yes, how you doing? I have a comment, really. I think, personally, when I remember when the law came out and was voted on, and, I have family members who are incarcerated, so, I'm very, very versed in the law. I think it was designed, personally, I think it was designed to do two things. One, it was to serve the prison industrial complex to find a cheap labor force, which is prison labor. California is the largest state that contracts prison labor. And the other thing I think it was designed to do was to change the eligible voting population in the state of California. 70% of the state of California is non-white. However, they vote along those lines. But if you have a huge segment of that population that's ineligible to vote, along with other additional poor populations that are ineligible because they're on parole, then that keeps the white power structure in power.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Right. And I just want to add, and most people that I've talked to don't know this, so I want to make this point. If you are a felon in the state of California and you have completed parole, you are off of parole, you may vote. There's a lot of misconception. In fact, most states in the country, that is the case. There's really only a handful of states in the country where your voting right is forever removed from you for being a felon. So if you're a felon out there, and if you know anybody, relatives, once they're off parole, they need to register and they need to vote. So please tell them, pass that on.
Oh, great. Thanks for your call, Lee. I want to go now to David in Long Beach. David, are you there?
Yeah. What about the thought that a person is actually establishing a pattern of behavior with this type of situation?
So you're referring to recidivism and that's what the law is intended to tackle? Well, let me just address that. And I think I pretty much spoke about that earlier when I spoke about the second strike component. It's a setup. I mean, we are causing a great deal of recidivism in this state, and compare it with other states. It's a fact. We have one of the highest recidivist rates in the country. Let's look at how other states are using their laws, and maybe we can learn something from that. First-degree murder receives 25 to life. Davis never released anybody on parole that had been, found guilty of murder. Murderers are not being released regardless of this law. This law has really nothing to do with murder. And people keep bandying that about because I guess it's dramatic and all that. But, we're not talking about murderers and rapists being charged under this law. If they're caught, they should be in prison, and they are. And they have long sentences already.
I want to go to our next caller here. Cindy is calling us from Los Angeles. Cindy.
Hi.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you for calling.
I was just wondering, what with the first and second young man who spoke, what were their first violent crimes that got them into trouble in the first place?
Williams were drug-related. Tomas had breaking and entering, residential burglary. But let me explain. There's another person that I feature in the documentary. He's a fascinating case. His name is Isaac Ramirez. He's the only person that's been released under the cruel and unusual doctrine with this law, the only person to date. And why Isaac is so fascinating is that he's really a 3-time shoplifter. I mean, that's all he's ever been convicted of, 3 times shoplifting. And on his 3rd shoplifting offense, he received 25 years to life in maximum security prison. And prior to that, which is one of the arguments he used to be released under cruel and unusual punishment, which, it's complicated. I don't have time to describe the whole case. But he had, prior to being sentenced to 25 years to life in maximum security prison, he had spent 6 months in county jail for 2 shoplifting cases. And what happens with these shoplifting cases, you say, well, how can that be violent and serious? How can that be on the violent and serious list? And people, it's very confusing, but it is, because if you are involved in a shoplifting gone wrong, say you are confronted by a security guard and there's a scuffle of any kind. We've got stories of, security guards just scraping their knees or whatever, and that's not a good thing. I'm not suggesting that we want that happening, but that can now be bumped up to a robbery as opposed to shoplifting. So now you're convicted of a robbery, which is on the serious and violent list. So that's what happened in the Isaac Ramirez case. You have a man who literally is a 3-time shoplifter receiving 25 years to life. And there's one more thing I just want to get in here that is really sad and that I learned, again, another thing that I learned, and most people probably don't know or don't think about. I asked a judge and I asked several experts, when you say 25 to life, because as you may know, life means that you're not necessarily going to get out in 25 years. You have to be paroled. And I said, what are we going to do with these folks when they come out after 25 years, or it's 26 or 28 or whatever? And they all looked at me. They said, they're not coming out. We're not letting these people out ever. This is a life sentence. So, I hope people...
So you don't necessarily then have to have a weapon to be on the, you don't necessarily have to have used a weapon in a robbery for it to be on the violent list.
That's correct. You're
right.
Correct.
Absolutely not. As I said, a robbery is just a shoplifting gone wrong can be bumped up and the person can be charged. And what generally happens then, you say, well, that doesn't sound fair. But what generally happens is then there's a plea bargain. This was before the law. And there would be a plea bargain and the people would take it. And but now they have a robbery on their record.
And so now, are the judges bound by this 3 strikes law, or is there any, play in their decision to enforce it?
Well, there is and there isn't. And that is addressed, I hope, really thoroughly in the documentary. Judges do have discretion. Often they are cowed into these long sentences by the district attorneys. It's really kind of a bizarre little dance that they do. And often the people, and another thing I guess that's important to mention is that a lot of these people that we're speaking of don't have resources. They don't have education. So, for them to play this game, and I guess I want to just go back to what I said at the very beginning, that this law is not simple. It is not simple for someone who for example, gets a robbery because they were shoplifting and now has no resources and no defense, and they're just overwhelmed by this. So it's not simple.
Thanks for your call, Cindy. We're getting ready to close the show. Sue Reams, an activist with Families to Amend California's 3 Strikes Law. I want to go to you for a final thought or a final comment, Sue.
Well, I'll tell you, I just hope that people are smarter than I was, and they really read through this material, and they really understand what this is. Mm-hmm. This is fixing a mistake. And as a part of fairness and justice, that, the 3-strike law of itself is like the Wheel of Fortune. Mm-hmm. Different county, different judge, different prosecutor. You just never know. In San Francisco County, you might not get struck out. In L.A. County, you're going to get struck out. or in Fresno County, Kern County, you are definitely going to get struck out. That's not a law that I think citizens of California want to abide by. I think I truly do believe in people, and I think they want fairness and justice for this society, and I think they want to do something about 3 strikes.
Great. I want to thank all of the guests who've been here today on Indy Media On Air. Sue Reams with Families to Amend California's 3 Strikes Law. Lisa Scott, filmmaker, who's got her film Under 3 Strikes, is screening across L.A. I want to thank our producer, Alan Minsky, engineer Ian Johnson, for doing the excellent job that they always do. For more information, under3strikes.org, yes66.org. You can get all sorts of information about the 3 Strikes Law and the film at those 2 places. Thank you for being with us. Please tune again next Monday at 3 o'clock for Indy Media On Air right here on KPFK.
Dead machines were rumbling across the ground.
You're listening to 90.7 FM, KPFK Los Angeles, also heard at 98.7 FM in Santa Barbara and at kpfk.org around the world. The Voices from the Frontline edition of the 4 o'clock report with Damon Azali is coming up next.